The state of flow hasn't yet fully been understood in terms of its associated cellular processes that make it happen. My name is Ladi Ojas. Welcome to Skeletal Leap, a living adventure. Skeletal Leap transforms one's life into a personal heaven. Today's episode will tell you how I cracked the code of instant Kundalini awakening and establishing gut brain communication. My eyesight had turned sharper than normal. All my chakras had also opened by now, gifting me with all their benefits to my health, both physical and mental. But there were no signs of any energy moving upward through my spine. Incidentally, life got busy with some other concerns that I needed to resolve before anything else for the next few years. And I had to postpone cracking the code of energy flow until the next phase of my spree, cracking further codes. Opening chakras had excellently done their job as a panacea. It wasn't only that they had instantly turned my myopic eyesight to sharper than normal, but they also did something that was really beyond my farthest fetched imagination. It was something related to the immune system, extending to a tendency toward autoimmunity in my body. I very well knew about the difference between the real infections and the pseudo-infections, with the immune system with a tendency to autoimmunity considered as real in the latter case. I also knew that medical science hadn't yet been able to do anything more than just partially managing the autoimmune diseases. It was with a long list of medicines to keep taking lifelong, with their side effects negatively affecting the quality of life. I had seen the victims to rheumatoid arthritis moving from bad to worse in their advanced stages, getting managed with a host of medicines with the passage of time. The very sight of their deformed bodies evoked feelings of a scary revulsion. I had never imagined I could also be pushed toward a similar threat owing to a traumatic phase in my life, causing me to ignore my central fixation. In 2019, while I was in a traumatized state due to suppressed anger when my daughter was inhumanly attacked by her estranged husband, I fell prey to viral arthritis. The virus was there in the air in my city that year. It caught my wrists, hands, and fingers with an acute pain in their joints. All my neighbors caught the virus too. The prognosis was that this virus would take a long time of a few months to be kicked out of the body. As I generally do in response to any infection, I didn't consult any physician but decided to wait and allow my body to fight with the virus naturally. 5 months passed by without any improvement in the situation. By now, my neighbors had either got rid of it or were on their path to considerable improvement. Ultimately, I consulted a specialist who gave me a strong medicinal course for 1 week. He assured me I would be okay within a week. A week later, I was not only back at his clinic, but my condition was worse too. I saw clear signs of panic on my physician's face. He had already done the best he could have. He concluded that mine was not a case of viral arthritis anymore. It had slipped into its autoimmune variant. He said it was most probably the onset of rheumatoid arthritis. Hence, he referred me to the most popular rheumatoid specialist in the city. This naturally scared me because rheumatoid arthritis, unlike viral arthritis, was an autoimmune disease, and I was aware that medical science hadn't yet been able to invent a total cure for any autoimmune irregularity. The new doctor tested my blood to assess if it was indeed the onset of rheumatoid arthritis. When he came to the conclusion that it was really so, he started a course of what I called medicinal management for it. It meant that I was doomed to live with this condition for the rest of my life, managing the disease turning worse and worse with the passage of time perennially. I told him I wasn't interested in disease management alone. What I was interested in was a complete cure. I asked him if it was possible or not. If it was, I would prefer living a free life without any precautionary conditions attached to it. If it wasn't, I would rather say bye to the world. He couldn't say yes, but tried his best to change my mind and gave me a month-long medicinal course. I told him I had done my own personal research on central fixation and its connection to lifestyle diseases. I added that while giving his medicinal course a shot, I would start my central fixation procedure simultaneously. If at the end of the month I was able to live without his next monthly dose, I would continue living, not otherwise. In the end, to make things lighter, I said, if I do, I will invite rheumatoid patients the world over to come to me for a permanent cure. He was ready, smiling with his funnily crisp reply. Hey, I need to put food on the table for my family too. I immediately started focusing on central fixation of my body again, something I had ignored due to my trauma. I lived, and I have never needed his medicines till date. The chakras that helped me the most in healing my condition through dissolving or opening them were solar plexus chakra, throat chakra, and crown chakra. Solar plexus chakra opened up to keep my thoracic diaphragm relaxed, turning my exhalations longer than my inhalations while breathing. Opening the throat chakra brought my arms and my hands back to their natural posture for good, and an open crown chakra took care of my autoimmune tendencies. This was the best confirmation for me that the central fixation done through opening chakras did work as a panacea. But I wanted to investigate into its further possibilities with a rekindled initiative now. I was convinced that an increased energy flow through the spine could do wonders. It could be a smooth, unobstructed flow, or else a burst of it in an emergency as a miracle. I knew this from my past experiences of coming across miracles where I was either a witness or an experiencer myself. Three miraculous stories from my life come to my mind. All three of them indicate that human body is a storehouse of all kinds of mysterious energy bursts. The first one took place in 1966 when I was an adolescent. I was going on foot for a sunny winter stroll in Dehradun. It was a city in a valley down my town on a hilltop where I had gone to spend my winter holidays. As I was moving leisurely, my peripheral vision saw a miracle taking place in front of my eyes. It was someone taking a giant leap in the air and picking a kid in front of a speeding car. Then I suddenly heard a harsh screech of the car applying all its brakes together. Immediately after this, I heard a noise coming from the other side of the road. Some people had surrounded a middle-aged gentleman with a kid in his arms. I ran toward them and asked someone in the crowd what really had happened. He spoke in a loud voice. This godlike man just saved this kid from getting run over by that car. But he himself doesn't know how. Hearing him, the middle-aged gentleman who had a mechanic shop near which he was sitting looked at us. He said, I really don't remember what I did and how I did it. I was working in my shop when I saw this kid just in front of that speeding car. The last thing I remember was saying to myself that the kid was gone. And now these people are telling me I have saved him. Yes, another man interrupted the conversation. I clearly saw him jumping like a cheetah. He took a leap to that far location where the kid was from his shop where he was working. Not even an Olympic gold medalist would have been able to perform a feat like that. The middle-aged gentleman laughed in doubt. Maybe God entered my body and made me do what you say I did. But honestly speaking, I just don't remember. And now I am seeing this kid in my arms here and that car applying brakes so far ahead. Looks like I might have done it. What would you people lie after all? I just assessed the distance of his shop from the road where this accident had been avoided from taking place. No one could ever have believed that it was humanly even possible to try doing what this man had done. I silently saluted that man and went my way, thinking deep within. Even today, I don't know if a spurt of biological energy could have performed that kind of miracle. Maybe yes, maybe no. We need to do further research on it. The second story took place in 1978. It was the year I had shifted from my small town in the hills of the Himalayas to Delhi, the capital of India. I would every day go for running in the evening. Generally, it used to be half an hour of running every day. But that day, I didn't stop after half an hour and continued running further. I got tired, but I didn't stop. I still continued running. 1 hour passed. I was nearly exhausted, but I still didn't stop. I still remember my feeling behind doing so. I was simply teasingly flirting with myself. I kept running. 1.5 hours had passed. I had reached almost the point of ultimate exhaustion in my body. I still kept running, thinking I would fall down on the road at the most in the worst case. But it was not to happen. Something else did. At one moment, all my tiredness suddenly went away. I felt a sudden surge of a very cool and relaxed energy in my body. I felt immensely fresh, like I was not running at all. I was rather floating in the air. I felt like I could keep running till eternity without even making any effort at all. At that point, I decided to stop in order to perceive more deeply what had happened to me. I started walking and looking around. I kept feeling I was floating. Everything in front of my eyes started looking much brighter to me. I remember the feeling of awe that I was going through as I walked on the road back home. I reached home and sat down in a chair, ingesting deep within what I was experiencing. After about an hour of keeping sitting in the chair, I was back to my old habitual self. I looked around in the literature for any reference of what I had gone through, and I came to discover that I had undergone a classical experience of the state of flow, also known as being in the zone. The state of flow hasn't yet fully been understood in terms of its associated cellular processes that make it happen. It still needs further research into it in order to garner various collective benefits it provides, like number one, completely involved in what we are doing, focused, concentrated. Number two, a sense of ecstasy of being outside everyday reality. Number three, great inner clarity, knowing what needs to be done and how well we are doing. Number four, knowing that the activity is doable, that our skills are adequate to the task. Number five, a sense of serenity, no worries about oneself, and a feeling of growing beyond the boundaries of the ego. Number six, timelessness, thoroughly focused on the present. Hours seem to pass by the minute. And number seven, intrinsic motivation. Whatever produces flow becomes its own reward. It is envisaged that the release of endorphins in brain facilitates the state of flow. We only need to know how to release these endorphins naturally for the purpose. The third story, that was a further extension of the state of flow, took place after 3 years in 1981. 3 years had passed after I shifted from my hometown to Delhi. At the same time, an estranged girlfriend of mine from Dehradun shifted to take admission in National School of Drama. I was also stationed there, working in a project associated with the same institute, that is National School of Drama. We had had a bit of fight before shifting and had stopped talking to each other. We kept crossing each other every day, passing by each other like two strangers as we crossed. It was something not very normal. It indicated we were still strongly attracted toward each other. Otherwise, we would have let go and moved ahead. Had it been so, we wouldn't have stopped talking to each other. 3 years passed by and the pattern of our behavior remained the same toward each other. After 3 years were over, something struck to me in my mind. I wanted my mind to get free from my concern for her. I went to her room in the hostel and proposed we should have an unconditional dialogue with each other. It would help both of us to drop each other from our minds. She readily agreed. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon at that moment. We decided we would meet after 3 hours at 6 o'clock in a nearby restaurant. I left her hostel and started walking on the road. But I suddenly discovered my gait was not the same old gait. I wasn't feeling like I was walking. I was really feeling like I was flying. This time, this feeling like flying was different from the relaxed, effortless feeling like floating in the state of flow. Although this feeling was also an effortless one, it was way more energetic. Even my speed was much faster, although I wasn't intentionally walking that fast. It was this miraculous spurt of energy that was controlling my speed despite myself. I was feeling like my feet were not really touching the ground at all. And it was this that was making me feel like I was flying. I had never walked at a speed like that before. Believe it or not, I kept feeling like flying at the same speed for full 3 hours. And dot at 6 o'clock, I ended up at the restaurant where we had decided to meet. What happened during the meeting was beyond my wildest imagination, but that's not what we are concerned with in this memoir. Later, I looked for references in literature resembling the state I had been subjected to. There I came to discover it might have been a spurt of serotonin release in the brain. It was this hormone that had made me leap into the state I had been in for full 3 hours. I kept thinking if we could release serotonin at will. Our body is a storehouse of all kinds of possible miracles, whether you categorize them under materialistic or vitalistic approach. Why don't we unearth them and make them an integral part of our life at will? Back to my renewed resolve of cracking the code of instant Kundalini awakening, or else establishing gut-brain communication, whatever it could be. As per my assertion, once chakras were opened, the energy should have risen upward through the spine on its own. But it didn't. I kept thinking why, but couldn't break through the puzzle. I tried my best doing all kinds of supportive maneuvers, but nothing really worked. It was a kind of maze I had been thrown into, unable to discover my way out of it. Incidentally, as I was groping with it, I happened to visit Kodaikanal in Tamil Nadu and fell in love with its natural environment. I enjoyed my walks through its wooded areas in pine forest. Someone suggested me to visit Mannavanur in the vicinity. So one of those days, I headed my way to that village. It was a real marvel of unspoiled nature with terraced fields all around. I strolled around the local habitation, trying to soak the culture of the place and clicking its visual beauty. A young boy in the village seemed interested in the photographs I was clicking and kind of befriended me. I showed him all the photos and videos of his village I had taken, which he really seemed to love. He offered me to show some more scenic places to click. I welcomed him and took him along. I also let him click a few snaps and record a few videos. He really felt excited as he recorded all those scenic spots himself. The boy took me home as he planned to make a video of his house as well. I happily followed him. He showed this video recording of his house to his neighbors, who enthusiastically requested him to record their houses too. We were mostly interacting using the sign language, interspersed with a few well-known words in between, as we didn't understand each other's language. It had almost become the lunchtime by now. I asked him where I could eat. He enthusiastically offered me to have lunch with him in his house, which I readily agreed to. He served me with the food cooked by his mother. There were quite a few dishes along with fresh salads which he had plucked fresh from his kitchen garden outside his house. I noticed a few dried mushrooms interspersed in the mix of fresh salad. I looked at him with questioning eyes. He iterated their name, Mannavanur magic mushroom, and picked up one to start chewing it, praising their taste with a shaking sign, joining his thumb with his index finger. I followed suit and kept eating the traditional tasty food of Mannavanur that his mother had cooked. By the time we finished eating, I felt my head had started reeling. I looked toward my host, who was smiling and making a circle with his index finger. He again iterated Mannavanur magic mushroom and closed his eyes half, expressing the feeling of joy he was having. I immediately followed his cue and switched my psyche to the mode of acceptance. The way he had iterated its name made me understand he intended introducing me to some special local gift of Mannavanur. I closed my eyes half as well and started focusing on what I was feeling. I started getting a moving visual in front of my mind's eye. It was a kind of narrow, white-colored wave in the shape of saw teeth, originating somewhere in my gut and slowly widening as it moved up to my head. As soon as it reached my head, it slowly faded to immediately reappear as the same narrow wave in my gut, moving up, widening itself as it reached the head, and slowly faded again to repeat the same moving visual every time. And it was this that was making my head reel. But this reeling wasn't feeling scary at all. It was rather enjoyable, though it was making me feel that there was something that was obstructing the widening wave as it reached my head. My absolute focus was automatically centered in a dynamic manner, moving along with the movement of the widening wave every time. I realized that my breathing had gone very rhythmic, moving in and out with the moving wave. As I inhaled, the widening wave moved down from my head to my gut in the shape of the narrow wave back. As I exhaled, it kept moving up, widening its periphery until it reached the head again, making it feel reeling. I felt like it was giving me a signal that something was hindering its widening further as it reached the head. I also felt like it was talking to me in the language of the moving visual and my head feeling reeling. It further felt like it was appealing to my conscious awareness of my dynamic focus to break my boundaries in order for it to expand itself further upward as it reached my head with my exhalation. Surprisingly, every time the expanding wave reached my head, my conscious feeling focused at my pelvic bed toward the pubis. I, with my conscious feeling, too felt like expanding below the pelvis, including my legs downward to the soles of my feet, merging them all together. How do I do that? As if I asked to myself. I immediately realized that it was actually a conversation going on between my conscious self and my deeper inner self in this visual language. My deeper self was trying to converse with my conscious self through making it feel the hurdles in the way of expanding further. Hours had passed by now, but they just didn't feel like hours at all. It was like time had stopped moving further. Only the needles of my watch were moving. How do I do that? I again asked to my deeper self. I don't know who said these words, but they immediately impinged onto my conscious mind, saying, "Let go." What was I holding on to? What was I not letting go? I again heard the same words through impinging onto my conscious mind, "Let go." It was every time while exhaling that the same two words were impinging onto my conscious mind. I took the cue and let the air go, exhaling further consciously. To my utter surprise, I was very efficiently able to throw the air out of my lungs until they couldn't do it further. And lo, the expanding waves kept expanding further up above my head as I, with my conscious feeling, too felt merging my total body from the soles of my feet below to the top of my head above. It turned into one single entity with its every part communicating with every other part. This communication was in its own language of energy flowing all through every single pore of my body, energizing it with an extreme sense of joy, especially in my entire head as well as all around my genitals. I inhaled all the exhaled air back, which I did without taking any more time than its previous inhalations, unlike the time it had taken in exhaling itself out the last time. I kept breathing with the same pattern for a while, and every time it worked through sending a smooth surge of perceivable energy rising up my spine to the top of my head and expanding further up from there, merging my total body from the soles of my feet below to the top of my head above with every single breath. Every time my entire body turned into one single entity with its every part communicating with every other part. And every time this communication was in its own language of energy flowing all through every single pore of my body, energizing it with an extreme sense of joy, especially in my entire head as well as all around my genitals. I had cracked the code of instant Kundalini awakening, or else establishing gut brain communication, whatever it could be. It wasn't important what it was to be called. Download the code of instant Kundalini awakening or establishing gut brain communication in the resources section of Skeletal Leap Book 1, available on skeletalleap.com/the mind body connection. The thing which was important was that every single breath was able to send a smooth surge of perceivable energy, rejuvenating every single pore of my body, mind, and soul, energizing it with an extreme sense of joy. The code was not only instant for once alone, but it was also repeating itself with the same intensity with every single breath, every single time. This was what we call energy oneness, I realized. I opened my eyes. It had already gone dark all around. I looked at my host and found him smiling. I didn't know what all he had gone through all this while, but what he had unknowingly gifted me was a priceless treasure for the entire humanity. I spent my night in the same house, and took his leave in the early morning, thanking him for what all he had done for me. As I reached Kodaikanal back, I realized I didn't even know his name, but then I felt it didn't even matter. What mattered was what had happened all along. Thanks for listening to this episode of Skeletal Leap, a living adventure. In the next episode, I will tell you how I cracked the code of instant central fixation of the body. Be a part of Skeletal Leap community. Subscribe to Skeletal Leap newsletter. Click on the link in the description to subscribe